All right, so forget pretty much everything you thought you knew about the business of buying and selling a house. The rule book that has governed American real estate for, well, decades has just been shredded. We're talking overnight, 18 foundational rules just poof, vanished. Now, this is not a small tweak, folks. This is a massive, seismic shift, and we're about to break down exactly what it all means.
So that brings us to the big mystery, right? Why would the National Association of Realtors, NAR, the biggest player in the industry, suddenly decide to tear down its own system? I mean, what forces could possibly be powerful enough to make them do something so drastic? Well, let's dig in and find out.
To really understand where we're going, we first have to take a look at the old world. See, for decades, NAR didn't just set the rules. They basically owned the entire game board. Everything ran through this tightly controlled, super centralized system.
And the heart of that whole system? It's the multiple listing service, or the MLS. You've got to think of this thing as the absolute lifeblood of the industry. It's the exclusive marketplace where agents list homes, find homes for their buyers. Seriously, without access to the MLS, an agent is pretty much flying blind.
And here was the kicker. In the old system, getting access to that essential MLS was completely changed to having mandatory memberships. And not just one, but at the local, state, and national levels. So to put it simply, if you wanted to play the game, you had to join their club. No ifs, ands, or buts. So what happened? What could possibly blow up a system that had been in place for so long? The short answer is pressure. We're talking immense, mounting pressure from the outside that basically forced the organization to decentralize its power. You know, the source material we're using for this explainer really nails the core issue. It says NAR is, quote, dismantling policies that made it function more like a monopoly than a trade organization. Wow. That one line right there sums up years and years of legal battles.
At the end of the day, it all came down to antitrust risk. Lawsuit after lawsuit started piling up, and NAR was facing a massive legal threat. Tying your membership to the ability to even access the market, well, that was starting to look a lot like anti-competitive behavior. So, to avoid an even bigger legal disaster, they had to cut the cord and give up some of that centralized control.
Okay, so how did they actually do it? Well, the first huge move was to unbundle access. And what that means is they're fundamentally separating the title of being a realtor from the ability to actually do business in the marketplace. This is a big deal. So let's be really clear about what unbundling actually means. It's pretty simple, really. It means an agent might now be able to just pay a fee to use their local MLS without also having to pay all those dues the local, state, and national realtor associations. It completely severs that mandatory link between membership and participation. And the changes this brings in practice are huge. I mean, we're talking about getting rid of mandatory national membership just to get into the MLS. They're ditching those rigid, one-size-fits-all national training templates. It all boils down to one simple thing. Power is flown away from the national level and down into the hands of hundreds of local organizations. The second major bucket of changes really builds on this whole idea of local control. It's all about modernizing the rules for property listings and data. And the goal is exactly the same. Strip away that rigid national oversight and give local markets way more flexibility. What this does is create a much, much more flexible marketplace. You see, the old system was heavily biased toward one specific type of contract, the exclusive right to sell. That bias, it's gone. Now, local MLSs can decide for themselves if they want to allow other options, like open listings. And this is critical. The decision on whether to send all that listing data to big public websites, that's now entirely in local hands. So look, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. All 18 of these rule changes, every single one, points in the exact same direction. A massive, truly historic transfer of power away from one centralized national body to hundreds of individual local real estate markets.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why, but what does all of this actually mean in the real world for the brokers and agents on the ground? It's time to talk about the new playbook.
The entire structure of the industry is being rewired right before our eyes. We are literally moving from this top-down pyramid of national rules to a sprawling network of flexible local markets. It's just a fundamental change in how the business of real estate is going to work.
This table from the source material does a great job of laying it all out. MLS access goes from being bundled with dues to being potentially separate. Training goes from national and rigid to local and lightweight. Listing contracts go from biased to flexible. And IDX rights, that's just the ability for agents to show all the MLS listings on their own websites, that's now being opened up too. Every single one of these changes creates new opportunities. So, what's the big opportunity in all this? The source article we're drawing from points to a powerful new strategy, especially for brokers. It argues that, quote, your recruiting pitch just got stronger in many markets. Okay, so let's break down what that actually means.
According to the source, this new recruiting pitch looks something like this. A broker can now go to an agent and say, hey, come work with us, and you can get full MLS access without having to pay those hundreds or even thousands of dollars in association dues. They can promise a faster start with less red tape, they can highlight direct cost savings for the agent, and they can talk about all the new ways to serve clients with more flexible contracts. I mean, that is a pretty compelling new value proposition.
And all of this leaves us with one final, absolutely critical question. As all this power shatters and shifts to hundreds of different local markets, are we about to see an explosion of new ideas and innovation, or are we heading for a period of chaos? The future of the entire real estate industry really hangs on that answer.